but it's contingent now on building some affordable housing to help keep our affordable housing mix. Now that's a good thing, but I want to tell you, that does not happen automatically. There are forces totally aligned against that. Because you know what motivates them primarily? Is money. It's greed. Now are we surprised by that? Of course not. But you know what? Even greedy people will bow to the reality of the people if the people elect politicians who set good policy that incentivize people to do the right thing. I don't care if the guy believes in doing it or not. If the rest of us believe it should happen and we create the permitting to be contingent on that, we're doing a good thing. We've spoken. And now whether he's morally committed to it or not, he has to do it to do business here. I'm okay with that. I don't care if he likes it or not. He's going to make money over here, and he's going to help the affordable housing stock. Is that a justice issue? And that's a very complicated thing I just described. That concerns me a lot more than listening to everybody who's got a justice claim out there. I just don't have time to do that when I'm trying to deal with something this massive that is changing, that's affecting lots of people in a very daily practical thing and is imminently solvable.
Okay,
it's not like we got to call somebody that, we got to solve a problem we never solved before. We just simply need to reach consensus and do the right thing.
Yeah. Okay. So you're acting like ladies and gentlemen, and people are actually having conversations about it. And chances are they haven't really thought too much about it. I was talking to the engineer.
Yeah, believe me, as a typical pastor, if I had not gone out in a community and got into networks and some collaborations, I would have never been at the meetings where I sit and heard this stuff and go, I didn't go to seminary to do this. What am I doing here? And then I began to realize, wow, this really is a justice issue. We are totally ignorant of this. We're not even paying attention. And I began as a pastor to realize I do need to care about this. And some of our brethren, particularly in the African American church, have been way more sensitive to this because their people are more directly affected. And as a white pastor, I got to say, brothers, I'm sorry. I've been asleep at the wheel. I've been totally ignoring this because, it doesn't affect my people that much. Although I'm in touch with a lot of white, poor, redneck folks, like my family. So I'm sensitive. More sensitized now by having been out and making myself involved in the community. I've had to come back and say, wow, I've been limiting my faith. I got to open my faith up to reality. Community engagement caused me to rethink my faith issues and read things that were right there in Scripture. I was reading right past it because it wasn't relevant to me, but it was relevant to my community, and I was AWOL. And God is calling me not to be AWOL to those issues. That's all I'm inviting pastors to consider. And it takes work and effort. It takes reallocating our time, our energy, our capacity, our people's attention, which we are responsible to steward.
And in this particular case, it often involves people who are outside of the community who come in and do some very disruptive things. And we're talking about disruption. We're talking about how transformational involvement is very disruptive, lining ourselves up with the Lord's way of thinking and doing.
Yes.
And the last thing we need is
affordable housing is going to disrupt the housing builders. They're not going to like what I just said, even though I know a great many of them. I like them. Now, there are some very, healthy, mature guys who get this and have even started companies to meet that need. It's just not enough of them. And so that's when I say, we need a coalition to raise the incentive so we can get the balance right. That's all I'm saying there is a test of wills. That's what politics is about, to find a consensus that we can all live with. And when those of us who see these injustices turn an eye away from it after we've been made aware, I think we're accountable for that. And I think one of the reasons maybe we intuitively know, I better not learn much about that. There might be something I have to take a stand on.
Right. I was talking with one of the guys who is an engineer for development, subdivisions out in suburbia too. And he was explaining to me what he does, and I said, would you want to live in a place like that? What do you think he told me?
I don't know. I'd be interested.
He said no. And you could see on his face that he totally disagreed with the kind of living situation he was creating for other people, but it was making him money.
Yeah. Well, that disconnect, here's what I would like to say to that brother if he were a man of faith or a man of faith in that industry is, we talk about the church being irrelevant, being out of touch, and I'm saying so is the school. Hey, I'm just here to teach. If you're not here to learn, that's not my problem. There's an old saying that if the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. Now, I'm not trying to put a guilt trip on teachers. I'm just saying we're involved in more than just doing a job. We're trying to invest in the future of our community so we are an educated people. There's more than just putting brick and mortar together. I'm trying to steward the resources so people have a decent, healthy place to live. I'm trying to create neighborhoods. That's all good, and some builders really get that, and some builders don't. And I'm saying the church has a voice. At 11 o'clock, the whole community's there. Nurses, doctors, builders, plumbers, electricians, dentists, school teachers, Spanish teachers, people that work on your feet, people that operate on your elbow. I mean, we're all there at 11 o'clock. So what's happening in a relevant way in classes and small groups and in lessons and networks we're pushing people into so that they start connecting their faith to the reality of what's going on in our city? I think for a long time, maybe decades, as a church, we've been pulling away from being in those places with a moral voice, speaking truth to power. One of the things that Congregation for Social Justice tries to do is we realized we need to speak truth to power, and they're not going to listen to one pastor. They're not going to listen to Doug. They're not going to listen to Bill. They're not going to listen to Sue. But if we all align together and say, hey, we're 100 churches and we represent 100,000 faith people, now they got to listen, because it's probably a bigger echo than that. So collaborating to speak truth to power together on some very clear, concrete things was a prudent thing, and it's why I became a part of it. And I still follow their emails and try to help engage my church in the causes to the degree that we can. And those are the kind of important things that I think a church that tries to change the city is going to be encouraging, motivating, and pushing its people into. So it's not like everybody in the church has to become a fair housing specialist, but the ones who should. And the ones who can help immigrants learn to read and help brainiac kids learn to invent the next new thing for us and go to Stanford and be great. I mean, it's all of that. It shouldn't be an either or. Finding the equitable way to move our community forward. The gospel speaks to that stuff, and we have increasingly limited ourselves from that discussion.
We have driven past some well-to-do neighborhoods, medium, and then the lows. Are they all qualified to receive the kind of attention for help, or is it just the people who are on the lower economic end of society?
Well, I mean, you raise a good point. What is fair? I think that's a conversation that a lot of people need to be at the table asking and talking about. We don't even want to have those discussions. Let's let the market figure it out. What is that? That's an abdication of saying, the market works good, the market's okay. But Christianity has thrived in command societies, that's aka socialism, in free societies, in chaotic societies, in warlike societies. So the gospel is not limited to the economic system we find ourselves in. You can go all around the world, every kind of system, and you can see Christians who can thrive and not thrive. And so engaging our system, I like being in a democracy, but that doesn't mean we should abdicate from speaking truth into it. Whether they listen or not is not ultimately my responsibility. My responsibility is, am I concerned about my society, not just my church and myself, and am I willing to engage in things that can help me, hopefully, be light and salt, help bring the kingdom of God to this city? And when you start asking those questions, this could make Sunday school a whole lot more exciting if we'd have some good debates and bring some guests in from the community and start learning about our society and then saying, oh, what did Moses say about that? What would Jeremiah think? What did Jesus say? Did Elisha have anything to say about that? What did Deborah think about that? And you just let's start connecting the stuff we read in the daily office with the world around us. That's all I'm asking for. I'm saying when we start doing it, it gets interesting. It's going to cause our faith to grow. It might actually help us to change things in our society. We've seen things happen differently in City Hall and in our community because we allied together in that coalition, Congregation for Social Justice. I'm proud of that. I want more of that. I want more of those kind of collaborations for everything: education, healthcare, business, getting people employed, all of that. Christians have a concern. Love your neighbor as yourself. So just what does that mean? And what about our neighbors who can't find work, can't get affordable transportation, are paying way too much for an ugly apartment? Why does that apartment cost so much? Why do we allow slumlords to basically extort ridiculous rents from people because they can? And we say, let's buy that apartment and lower the rents to what they should be. We don't do that. So should I really just blame the slumlord or say he's taking advantage of it because he can? So who am I to judge him? I haven't entered into that market and tried to address it in a concrete way.
Maybe he would be something like us. We would find out and say, I never really thought about it from that angle, that kind of rationale. I want to give that some serious thought. I think I would like to help bless the city.
Yeah. Why don't we ask him to get into more houses and still make a good living, but not extort from people, and look at the people that he's really renting to. And then there's issues with the people that rent who tear up the property because they have no respect for other people's property, even the property they're renting. So there's no end to this thing of why we all are humble and broken, need to be humble, we are broken, and we need to all grow morally together. And the church is the one place where we can begin to bring morality and a moral consensus back to the conversation. It's not there. We can't even agree on the church. So how do we speak with one voice to the community? There's a lot of work the church needs to do, but running and hiding and just throwing up our hands is not a good solution. A lot of people want to do that because they realize, oh my goodness, this is messy. This is complicated.
This is disruptive.
This is disruptive. This is what it means to fight in a fallen world with fallen people to bring the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. I'm not required to win. I'm required to be engaged.